if you're into prototypal change with a weird underscore underscore proto, first class functions, the fact that
Java
actually
script.
directly changing,
All right.
aka mutating your data,
All right.
is bad practice. I mean,
Sure.
I suppose you're like most other software engineers in the world. I'll never understand it. I do. But I don't. I don't think anybody really does. JavaScript is the most popular software language in the world. Oh, God. I was wondering where you guys went. Yeah, sorry for that dramatic intro. JavaScript, yeah, sure, it's amazing. But it's also a freaking pain in the... Can't say it. YouTube gets mad at you for that stuff. But you guys know exactly what I want to say. Now, the whole point of that dramatic intro is I keep finding myself in JavaScript. And, you guys know this. My primary tool set, my stack, my go-to, it's always Laravel. And Vue, frankly. But more and more, I'm finding myself using Node and vanilla JavaScript. And even configuring Chrome console and Firefox to connect to my local file system so I can start using them. And I've made 7 or 8 packages now here in the last month, which is why I haven't posted as much. And they're all JavaScript. Every single one of them. Now, a lot of them have to do with Laravel, and a lot of them are really cool. We did a Vue.js form. We'll get a tutorial on that when that thing's done. That thing's hefty. Tons of validation, regular expressions, all that. I replicated Laravel's Fluent String API using, a whole bunch of fancy stuff. A lot of Laravel Mix plugins. Laravel Mix came out with a new version that makes it really easy, incredibly easy to extend Laravel Mix. And that's Node. That's server-side JavaScript. I'm thinking about actually making a package, and it would be stupid simple. I've just got so many other things going. But making a package that allows you to run PHP artisan commands during your Laravel Mix build process. I just created a Laravel Mix extension, a package called Laravel Mix Code Splitter that it uses Node. It's incredible because now it's Node goes and compiles and builds everything and moves things around the file system. You still have your actual, it's server-side code. And then you have Laravel as your server-side code, but it's becoming more of a, I'm not going to say purely runtime, because Artisan is an amazing tool. But there's another NPM package out there called Commander, and then Inquiry. And together, you can make a pretty much equivalent to Artisan. And I say that very lightly because Artisan is amazingly made. But the biggest advantage is that Node is JavaScript as an event system, as a loop. And I'm sure you can do this in PHP too, or as well using cron. I know you can. But it's not the natural organic feel of PHP to do this. And this being, Node can actually watch files like npm run watch, npm run hot module replacement. And I never knew how easy it was to say, hey, Node, watch these files. When these files change, you need to go and redo that. And so you're able to take like this whole aspect, you're able to automate a lot more. You're able to automate and trigger events based on just server-side JavaScript. It's amazing. And then you have like browser-side, and I went into the prototype chain a little bit, and then you have like apply, you have bind, you have call. Whew. Those things get funky and powerful. JavaScript proxies, JavaScript's Reflect API, don't get me wrong, I hate JavaScript. I hate it. But I freaking love it. It's incredible. It's, and I think, and I haven't done much with TypeScript, but my favorite design pattern, by far the most powerful in my mind, is dependency injection. Service containers. They, and this gets really confusing, just because the terminology sounds so similar to each other. But dependency injection via the service container actually implements dependency inversion, which is you have a dependency tree and you invert it. So you're instead of always treeing out, expanding the complexity and the dependencies of your application, you're inverting it. And the service container is it's just such a powerful design pattern. It manages your dependencies. That's what it does. And I never thought you could do that in JavaScript. But in TypeScript, you can. And so all of a sudden, you got this Wild West, but you also got the TypeScript to implement dependency containers and dependency injection containers, which implement dependency inversion. And then you have the ability, first class functions, which makes things functional. In TypeScript, I'm not I don't use TypeScript very often. And frankly, I've never been a mathematical oriented person. I got held back in kindergarten. Sorry. I just spend a lot of time doing this stuff. But I'm not smart enough to do any of that, It's it's amazing, though. Functional programming doesn't depend on any extraneous state. They're all pure functions. And I'm not sure if that is what TypeScript is. But TypeScript in some way, and again, I do not know the specifics. This just sounded interesting. In some weird way, TypeScript is object-oriented enough to implement dependency inversion, but still extremely algebraically backed. And do I personally believe functional is the best paradigm? Absolutely not. And I don't believe that because it's harder to understand for most developers. When you take the context of the general engineer's experience, the general engineer's ability to implement functional, in comparison to object-oriented, I think object-oriented is far and beyond a better choice in most circumstances. That being said, if you look at the intrinsic problem, meaning you're not looking at the context, you're not looking at who's going to use the technology, you're just looking at the absolute intrinsic, best solution to a problem, it is functional. It's functional programming. That is intrinsically the best paradigm. Now, don't fall into that trap that nothing we ever do is, we never are able to simplify it to the intrinsic point, meaning there's no more complexity added on it based on the fact that we're humans and we make mistakes and we're not perfect. We're humans. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. there will always be more complexity, more things added that are not a part of the absolute problem domain, the intrinsic problem domain or intrinsic complexity. We're always going to we're not smart enough, we're not capable enough, it's just how it is. But if we took the human aspect out, functional is the better paradigm. It makes more sense. But as humans, I definitely go for object-oriented. So, take that and let it go. But I guess my whole thing with this is JavaScript is the most popular software language in the world. And I think it's the only software language I can think of that is truly used to the extent that it is on both the front and the back end. Now, there are other languages, and honestly, I think almost any language can technically do that. But JavaScript is the only one that's built out in such a powerful way on both the front end and on the back end. And its event system, its ability to watch and observe. You got React and Vue. You've got, you've got Webpack, which is purely Node. And it's incredible. And it's still a lot like the Wild West. There's so many different implementations. And the limitations of a browser in comparison to a server as far as what it can handle size-wise, and you have to be a lot more conscientious about limiting the size of packages. So you're not always able to build it out the exact way you want to because there's more size concerns in comparison to something like PHP, or even more so to something like C++ or Java, where they actually are, more lower level compiled languages. And so the browser side of JavaScript it's powerful as heck. It's powerful as hell. But the size limitations are huge. Now with Node coming in and all these compilers and simplifying, complex code and breaking it down, you're able to start, doing things on the server side and not have to care nearly as much about the size, and ultimately do all these really cool things and then just compile exactly what the server needs. It's really incredible. And if you're, I hate saying that, I truthfully, I have tried to hate JavaScript. I have, and not like really hate it, but like I've just never. I was a writer before I was a software developer. I was a writer, and I like when things look pretty. I like when they're beautified. Like they have a sense of benevolence to them, a context, almost poetic understanding, where it feels right and it looks right and it just is right. And I think primarily due to a personal distaste for the lack of Laravel-like beliefs in the JavaScript ecosystem. Kind of always put me off of it, But I think that's starting to change a little bit. A lot of that because of Node. And a lot of that because, things are getting more powerful. Browsers can handle more. And the immense amount of compilers, it's just, Babel, which, by the way, I'm not 100% sure about this, but for those of you who have wondered what Babel stands for, I think it's like Baby Babel. And what Babel does is it compiles any form of JavaScript down into vanilla JavaScript that any browser can understand. And so I think Babel, and this helped me just to remember it, I think Babel is like goo goo gaga, like baby Babel. I think that's what Babel stands for. Again, didn't read that anywhere, but once I kind of understood the context of what it meant, putting two and two together, I would guess that's where the name Babel came from. Is it takes any language, and I'm going to say any JavaScript language, because feels like there's so many ways to write the same code in JavaScript. And it takes just any language of JavaScript, any flavor of JavaScript, and it compiles it down to baby Babel, that any browser is able to understand. Maybe with the exception of Internet Explorer, because, Internet Explorer used to have 90% of the market share as far as browser popularity goes. Internet Explorer. And I know Internet Explorer switched over to Edge and they're trying to actually get rid of Internet Explorer. But I don't get it. Like, they had 90% of the market share for people that used browsers. And it was like 2004, 2006 or something. Internet Explorer had 90% of people that used browsers were using Internet Explorer. And then they just got demolished. I don't know. Everybody who's a developer, like, I think it's a pretty ubiquitous, unanimous decision that screw Windows when it comes to web development. That being said, Windows is amazing as far as some of the stuff they do, and their cloud platforms becoming incredible. Teams, Microsoft Teams. In the first few weeks of Corona, there was 1 week, and, it wasn't immediately when Corona started, but it was like 2 or 3 weeks in when everybody, was working from home, schools got let out, kids weren't going to school, and everybody started using all these online, Slack, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Blue Chip, what's the other one? Zoom. In a single week, Microsoft Teams overtook Slack. And I don't mean like overtook them. I'm not sure where the stats were like originally. I mean like in a single week, Microsoft Teams gained more users than Slack has gained in its entire existence. You want to talk about the power of big companies like Google or Microsoft or Amazon? Like, that's crazy. Slack. Like, I don't know about you guys, but personally, like, Slack is my go-to. I use Slack. Like, I love Slack. And Microsoft Teams in a single week gained more users than Slack had in its previous, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of existence. I don't know how long Slack's been around, but it was years. And in a single week, Microsoft overtook them. And at the same time, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, oh man, Teams is actually a pretty decent product. It integrates with Microsoft's whole business flow. And again, not a big Microsoft fan, but I think that's because I'm a web developer and not a, if I was a VR developer, I'd probably love Microsoft. But I'm not. I'm a web developer. And in a single week, they overtook Slack. I'm just like, dang. And the reason was because there was a need. Everybody was about to use it, so Microsoft is just this huge entity. Facebook's the same way. Google's the same way. But all those companies, man, they have so much power. And as soon as it, this is undoubtedly a niche market we want to be in, they just dominated because they were already kind of there. But as soon as they needed to be all in, they were all in and overtook everybody. And that's really incredible to think that Microsoft, a 90% market share as far as people using browsers. 90% of the people in the world were using Internet Explorer. And then Firefox came in and took a little bit of the market share. But then Google really came in. And now Google's like, I think they're like 40 or 60%. I forget what the number was. But Google's obviously dominating now with Firefox in second. And Internet Explorer is, one, Internet Explorer, they're trying to get rid of it. But they replaced it with Edge. And I don't even know why they did that. It's more frustrating now knowing that, like, hey, we have this full-on product, Internet Explorer. It was competitive. And then they just let it go and restarted. I'm sure they had good reasons, but it's just a product of that magnitude, of that size. 90% of the global market share at its peak. And then they just got destroyed by Chrome and couldn't keep up. And then it was like, hey, we got to restart. And one of the things was actually was when Microsoft went to court back in, I think that was 2004, 2006, whatever, around that time. They got convicted of monopolizing, of being a monopoly. And that's when, it's crazy to think about. Bill Gates hit $100 billion back in 2000. Back in 2000, Bill Gates was worth $100 billion at one point. That's how big Microsoft was. And one of the reasons I think Internet Explorer is such a pain in the rear end, hindsight, donkey butt is they actually separated Internet Explorer from Microsoft after losing that battle in court about being a monopoly. Which, honestly, I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Bill Gates. I think a lot of that, okay, I get it. They were very, very, very successful. But at the same time, like, they, especially Bill, and maybe I have a different perspective because I'm a little younger and I was born in 97, so I didn't see the maverick Bill Gates who was, out to take over the world. I've seen the Bill Gates that's eliminated, smallpox. That's the guy that, donated $100 million to fight Corona, initially 10 million and then 100 million. And so I have all the respect in the world for Bill Gates. I'm sure there's other opinions out there, but personally, like, from what I've seen, I have an immense amount of respect for him. And I just, I think there's definitely a responsibility to, I don't know, monopolization of an industry, I think is very rare nowadays. And maybe I just was too young to remember the scope and dominance Microsoft had. But to be considered a monopoly on the internet for software, like, there's nobody in the world that could monopolize software right now. Like, nobody. You have Google, you have Amazon, you have Microsoft, you have, I guess Netflix, maybe. I don't know if Netflix is on that level, but they sure as hell pay a lot for it. It's a bad place to work, though. But it's just incredible that they got to that point. But basically, going around circle with this, Firefox and Chrome, they pushed JavaScript. Internet Explorer, I'm not sure where they stood on that. I think they used to use like VB script And then Firefox and Chrome came in and they pushed, script, and then Google everybody started using Google, and boom, JavaScript got popular. And then you had jQuery, which at the time was like, whoa, jQuery is so clean. All you have to do is say, hey, look for this element. And when this element is clicked, do this event, whatever event that is. But it was still a little unwieldy, right? It wasn't, there was something missing because it wasn't as expandable. Because JavaScript's an unwieldy language. There was a lot of unknowns about how to properly handle JavaScript. And then all of a sudden, Google comes out with Angular. And Angular becomes the most popular JavaScript framework in the world. And Angular initially was, and I am not too familiar with the history of Angular, if it started off reactive or not. But in my personal experience of where it's at today, Angular is pretty biased. It's got some pretty good ideas, and I believe, I could be wrong, I believe Angular actually kicked off the reactive, reactive warfare. And eventually Facebook came out with React. And, then there's also Vue, who, Evan Young. And that's the battle today, and Angular kind of just lost. But I want to be honest, guys. I've been thinking about what's the future of PHP and what's the future of JavaScript. The future of PHP, I am pretty absolute it's Laravel. It's just, in every sense of the word, Laravel is dominating the PHP framework world. Now, there are a few downsides to Laravel and to PHP. Now, I don't think they matter much because Laravel, as we've talked about in the past, is more than a PHP framework. They're an entire ecosystem. But the biggest downsides are that it does not have certain abilities that something like Node has, or even Go. Go is getting pretty popular. But I don't think it needs to, because it just the ease of use and the PHP's community and their willingness to expand the language. PHP isn't going anywhere. The only point I have with that is that PHP doesn't have some of the same capabilities that something like Node. JavaScript, Node or browser side, right? PHP can't run in the browser. Node watchers, it's just the sheer things that JavaScript can reach out into is crazy. And on the front end, on the browser side, it's Vue and React. But on the back end side, and by the way, Laravel's not only the most famous PHP framework in the world, it's the most famous back end framework in the world. The most famous. The most popular, not famous is a weird word. Popular. The most, it's either GitHub stars or installs or uses or whatever it is, but it's winning in one of the main metrics. So I'm pretty content with, my personal decision to dedicate myself to Laravel. I like, it's done me well. I love working with it. And the Taylor Otwell, Jeffrey Ways, always go above and beyond my expectations, and I'm sure many others out there. I just don't see anybody else catching them in the PHP world, and in other languages. I just, there's just something about Laravel. Like, it's just so well done. And I feel resolute in my investment into Laravel. But that brings us back to React, and specifically reactive. I wanted to say reactive, but React versus Vue. React.js versus Vue.js. Now, this is an incredibly intense fight, battle. It's almost warfare. The motivations behind each are so significantly different. You have Facebook versus an open source, a purely open source. You have one that has 3 million more installs than the other. Yeah, React has like 3 million or something more installs than Vue.js. It's got, the stats are just overwhelming, like, as far as usage of React, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Vue.js, even though it has, like, it's crazy. It's like 1/4 of the usages of people using it in their projects right now. Vue.js has more GitHub stars. Vue.js has more GitHub stars, and the number of commits are growing. I wish I had this in front. I should have this in front of me. So it absolutely has more GitHub stars. Vue.js overcame React. React definitely has 3 million or something more installs. It's millions of more installs. But Vue.js, I actually asked on the Reddit React channel the other day. I was like, as a Vue.js guy, as a guy that spends my time in Vue, what am I missing out on by not doing React? And the best answer I got, and it was a good answer, was that it's closer down to vanilla JavaScript, giving you a little bit more flexibility. And it was a good answer. He had a really good answer. But I didn't get any other good answers. I got the answer that the documentation kept coming up. Like, React, they do have phenomenal documentation. And I was like, that's, and I was trying not to debate, even though I enjoy it, so I tend to debate either way. But I was trying not to. I was genuinely trying to figure out, like, what am I missing out on by using Vue.js instead of React.js? And I honestly, outside of that answer, that is closer down to vanilla.js, giving you a little bit more flexibility, every other answer, and I didn't necessarily say this every time, but every other answer I had an immediate review to. And one of the most common ones was that React's documentation is solid. React's documentation is solid. It's good. It's good. It's solid. It's better than 99% of framework documentation out there. I'd even say it's better than Vue.js's documentation as far as look and layout, and I haven't gone deep down the rabbit hole of React. I have gone deep down the rabbit hole. Deep. Like, specifically Laravel and Laravel and Vue together is my favorite software combination. Right now, for Clean Code.studio, I'm combining Laravel Spark and Laravel Nova and a few personal Vue specific packages and some JavaScript vanilla packages that I've made. I'm excited for that. But I guess my point with that is, one, I am biased, just so you know. I'm biased towards Vue.js. I'm not going to hide that. I have a lot more experience with Vue.js, and to be completely honest, I get more out of, I guess, my career as a software engineer if Vue overtakes React, right? Like, I have the experience there. But that's also why I'm asking this question. That's why I'm really asking this question. Because it matters. It matters. It matters which tools you use and how they are going to fare in the future. And I've always had a rule of thumb I have tried to be absolute in, and that's that I always strive to do what adds more value in comparison to what makes me more money, or in comparison to what, frankly, I enjoy. And, taking it from that perspective, I also realize if I enjoy something, then a lot of times I'll learn more. But money-wise, and trust me, it's not because I don't want money. Clean code, clean life. Make some damn good clean code. Become amazing at your craft. And then you're so rich that you have a clean life because you're just free. That's clean code, clean life, in case anybody is wondering. So it is not in any way that I am not ambitious, or it's not that I don't have a desire to make a lot of money, because I do. But I'm willing to put in the work and do everything I can, to sacrifice for it. And I have, and I continue to, and I as far as I can tell, I'll continue to until, I make it. And I don't even know what that means. But I just know that, I'm going to keep working until it feels good, it feels right, it feels like I've done what I needed to do, I've contributed what I needed to contribute, I've added value to the world, to people, to companies, to organizations, to individuals, to, mentoring, to teaching, to, just personally providing software, to just confidence through competence. I am not naturally a confident person. Like, I'm not. Now, when it comes to something I'm good at, I can be a cocky donkey butt. I really can. But that's because, I'm 20,000, 25,000 hours into this. And that's no excuse to be a piece of, cow dong sometimes. But it's just, that's how it is. And it's not I guess a little bit an ego thing, but a lot of it's just that I need to know that I'm getting better at something, that I am just doing something that isn't just kind of okay, but that is just absolutely just good, and I strive to be great, probably never will, and just to be better than yesterday, and to also, sorry guys, I'm kind of getting off the topic of JS. I feel a need it's just a burn. And I feel like if I don't do something to the best of my ability, and it's not everything, because a lot of other things I absolutely suck at. But I just have always had the need, almost instinctually, to just pick something. It used to be sports and weightlifting, believe it or not. I had a 500 and something pound deadlift at one point, senior year of high school. And I jumped out a second story window and then got into software. But it's always been something like that. And a bit of it, it's always been like, I can handle the challenge and overcome it. I can handle it. And it's not always been the best or healthiest thing, but it's always, I think it's just, that's my fight. Is I just have a weird, we'll call it fetish, to be really good at something. And frankly, as much as I love software and the potential behind software, if this medium went away tomorrow, it's something else. I'll find something to get on. I'll find something to focus on, to focus in at. And that's why I've always compared software to a sport. It's like jiu-jitsu, You're a white belt. You don't really know what's going on. You're just getting the crap beat out of you, and then you do it for a while, and you take your punches, you take your hits, you take your choke outs, your arm bars, and that one blue belt who was decided, hey, there goes your shoulder. Yeah, and then you slowly through time you get a little bit better. You start to learn some moves, and you're not good yet, but you're able to defend yourself a little bit. You're not immediately messing up the application and just banging your head against a wall. Like, the syntax, that, functions can be passed in as a parameter to another function. That, parameters are separated by commas. Like, stupid semantical, I guess that's not even semantical, stupid syntax stuff. Like, you start to understand that. You start to understand, hey, don't do that, because that will be what gets me into that chokeout. That will be what breaks my application. That will be, that will be the reason that I fail this time. And you start to learn a few more of those, and you don't naively make a wrong decision because it's naive. It's just you don't know. You haven't failed enough yet, and that's okay. And then you switch into blue belt, and then from blue belt, you start to learn, how to do things all right, how to kind of put things together and build out, your own custom functions, or how to make objects, and you start to understand, classes, and maybe even instances versus like static. But you're still learning. You're still getting your butt kicked. That never ends. If you've been doing it for 25,000 hours, or somebody here that's been doing it for 50, there's always going to be that other problem, concern, or just straight up freak in the room that's just better. And I've never been the freak. And I never will at anything I ever do outside of like a weird commitment to become good at things. Like, again, guys, failed kindergarten, almost failed out of college algebra A, college algebra B. I broke my foot jumping out of a window playing a stupid game in high school. Football career was over. And then all of a sudden I got into software, and then I went from almost failing college algebra A to like a 98% in college algebra B. But it's because I was able to just see immediate feedback, and for me that's something important, I guess. I didn't know that. I could probably put two and two together. But, hey. And then you move on to purple belt, and then you're starting to, I'm starting to get these objects, these classes, statics, instances, even throwing a few design patterns here and there. And then you move on to like a brown belt. You're like, I've wrestled a few I rolled with jiu-jitsu a few wrestlers, and now I'm learning like wrestling and, jiu-jitsu together, and I'm learning how to like really defend myself. But more than that, I'm learning when to do things, what context. I'm learning how to react. And you're kind of learning that at purple belt too, but at brown belt, it's like others are looking to see how you react, and they're trying to learn from that. And the hardest part with that is you don't always know how to react. You don't. And through time, you just kind of get used to that. It's like, I don't know if this is the right decision, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try it. And I'm going to, make sure I create a situation where we're not going to go all into this, because I'm not sure. If I'm confident and I know this is the right way, hey, guys, been here, done that. Trust me on this. You know where I've been. You know my experience. You know my skill set. You have confidence in my competence. I'm confident and competent that this is the right way. And you know to say that. But if you're not, then you don't say that. And it's just like if you're a brown belt and you don't know if that dude's gearing up for, I don't know, this terrible example for brown belt, but like a guillotine, like if you know he's good at guillotines, you're not going to take a shot on him. You'll get your head caught and you'll get choked out. And if it's not jiu-jitsu in a mat and it's real life, you're dead. You're dead. And so it's just, you learn and, eventually become a black belt. You know what, though? You never, ever, ever get to the point where you always know. Ever. If that's your goal in software, wrong field, man. Wrong field. Wrong field altogether. Because it comes down to this. It comes down to this and nothing more. Software engineering, it's about ingenuity. It's about, Jeff Bezos had an incredible analogy. And this was back in early 2000s. It's on my LinkedIn page. In 2000, people compared the internet to the gold rush. There's a lot of commonalities. Many, many commonalities. It was a boom. It was a gold rush boom. You had people leaving other careers because like, am I missing out, Well, back in the gold rush days, you had doctors teaming up with like dentists from Boston and New York. And they're going out to California to dig for gold. It's like a dentist, a doctor, and a lawyer leave their job to go dig for gold. And in a way, a lot of that happened with software. And there was a big boom. And people got filthy rich off it. The gold rush, right? But with every boom, there's an implosion. It explodes, then it implodes. It comes back. And all those people that were up here, some of them, they just made it. But then it implodes. And then it comes back down. And the reason is because gold is finite. Gold is limited. It's, it is what it is. Like, it has no abstractual meaning. It's gold. Like, that's all. It's gold. It's this thing you hold in your hand, and you can give it to people, they can give it to you. It's valuable for, I'm sure there's better reasons than the fact that it's actually gold. I'm sure it's used for something or was used for something or whatever. But the fact is, it's still limited. And that's where the internet boom, software boom, and the gold boom kind of trade off, right? Yeah, they both boomed. Yeah, people left their jobs to get into software. People left their jobs to go gold mining. People got filthy rich, and people lost tons and tons and tons of money. But software's much, much, much less like gold. And again, this is Jeff Bezos' analogy. I love it. And it's much more like the electrical industry. Now, what's this mean? Software isn't driven by a bottom line, by an absolute, by a static finite amount of something. Neither is electricity, or more specifically, what you can do with electricity. Electricity came, and after that, you had the light bulb. And, to make the light bulb, you had to make, outlets. And those outlets were dangerous. So for the outlets, you had to put plastic covers over them. And then you had to figure out how to plug the light bulb into, the outlet at first. And that didn't make much sense. So then you have to make, light bulb things that you screw the light bulb into, and it acts like an outlet, but it's for a light bulb, not for, plugging things in. And then you get, washing machines from electricity. And then all of a sudden you get dryers, and you get video cameras, and you get, computers, and just tons of innovation. And, maybe you're by your computer. Look at your cords. You're telling me, I'm totally acting like that's my idea. That's exactly what Jeff Bezos said, to be honest. Look at your cords on your computer. It just made so much sense to me. Look at your cords on your computer. You're telling me that's the best we can do? You're telling me in 10, 20 years from now, we're going to be using freaking cords like that? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cords plugged into my computer in the wall immediately around me within a 10-foot, 6-foot radius. 12 cords. That's not the best we can do. Electricity, you always are going to see innovation until maybe we switch to gravity power or something. I don't know. But there's always innovation. There's always something else to do, and it never ends. It never ends. That is why software is so much more synonymous with electricity than gold. Is the innovation behind it. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And the innovation, it's never ever ending. There is always something to do better. There's always something that can increase the quality of what we do and how we do it, 20 years ago, we didn't have Google. Maybe it was 22 or 23 years ago. I don't know. 22, 23 years ago, we didn't have Google. There was no Wikipedia. There was no GitHub. There was no NPM. There was no Packagist. There was no Laravel. There was no Vue. There was no React. And that's just the peak of the iceberg, guys. That's Amazon. 1994, I think, was when they came around. 1997 was when they had their IPO, initial public offering, aka they went into the stock market. I remember that because I was born in 1997, and if I would have bought I think it was 10. I think if it was if I invested $10 or $100, I'd be a millionaire now. If I invested $10 to $100 in Amazon the day I was born, literally $10 or $100 in Amazon the day I was born, I'd be a millionaire. Either way, I would do it if I knew. Of course you can't know that. Doesn't mean I don't wish I didn't. But that's software, guys. And now you got AWS, you got cloud computing, you got virtual reality. Like, do you think we're gonna be typing on our computers in 20 years? Honestly, I don't. It's slow. It's unhealthy sometimes. It's as fast as a way of communication that we currently have outside of verbal and body language. It's an incredibly fast way to communicate, and it's incredibly accurate. It's incredibly accurate in comparison to something like body language or something like verbal communication. Like, that can be misconstrued. And so can writing. Writing can absolutely be misconstrued. How many times have you looked at other people's code and been like, huh? Never my code though, right? We're so biased towards our own code. It's crazy. I love telling people I'm not opinionated. That's a lie. I am. My code's just, it's the best. Of course it's not. It never will be. And that's okay. The reason it never will be is because Taylor Alwell exists, and, his code is... God dang, I'm turning into such a fanboy. That's crazy. It's just the amount of articulate detail, just the care and the love that he puts into that. It's amazing. But I don't know, guys. This started off as JavaScript. The whole thing with this is, I'm going to start doing some JavaScript tutorials, by the way. And I know I've been saying I'm going to do some tutorials, and I keep wanting to work on the cleancode.studio website, and I'm not getting to the tutorials. I am not tomorrow or the next day, or maybe tomorrow, but I am definitely prioritizing a few tutorials. It's been too long since I posted them, and frankly, I'm a little burnt out coding as much as I have. I've been doing like 80, 90 hour weeks again, and just going all in, trying to just get a lot of things I've never had the time to do until all this Corona nonsense. But that being said, I feel bad. I guess is what it comes down to. I feel bad. I feel like you guys have been amazing, supporting Clean Code Studio. And to be all honest, sometimes YouTube can get really tiring. And I never really understood. I heard other... Oh gosh, am I about to call myself a YouTuber? That sounds weird. Huh. I've heard other YouTubers... Oh. That sounds funky, guys. I've heard other YouTubers say it, like, when you post videos and you're like trying to respond to people and keep your content up to date and always post, and it's really, really tiring. It's really tiring sometimes. Sometimes it's awesome. It's enjoyable. It's fun as heck. Other times it's just, it's... to give you an idea, like, I uninstalled Facebook for a while. I uninstalled Snapchat. I uninstalled Instagram. I uninstalled, everything but Reddit and YouTube Analytics and, what was the other one? LinkedIn. That was the other one. And that's all I had left. Like, I uninstalled all of my other social media, and eventually I had to just uninstall YouTube and everything else too. Like, I enjoy seeing improvement, which, I don't do it for just the numbers. Like, I guess that's the point, is nobody really does it, especially starts out for the numbers. And I'm trying to be really honest here without, I don't know. I'm trying to be really honest here. Nobody does it for the numbers. Nobody does it because, nobody starts off doing it for that. And it's a really quick trap that I'm very, 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 I think, aware of, just because my natural instinct is always, hey, what's the next improvement? What's the next, step? What's the next belt? And it happened today. Like, we hit 1,000 subscribers, and thank you guys so much. I mean, I seriously thank you. And I got an incredible email from one of you guys, because he reached out and he just basically said, hey, I'm a PHP developer, and your tutorials, like, they help me learn. They help me learn, and that's the way I learn best. And just the nicest, genuine, just feel good way. He was like, hey, will you come back and start posting again? And frankly, that's a lot of the reason I'm posting this right now and planning on doing some of these JavaScript things. I was full on just planning on getting the Clean Code Studio site done and then coming back. But that comment is the reason I'm back. And I want you guys to know that sometimes I take a break because I just, I need to, for my own well-being, my own, I guess, mental health sounds extreme, but honestly, that's what it is, for my own mental health. Like, I need to get away from other people, not judging my content, not even watching my content, but it's just like, it's more of, I need to prove to myself that I can still do what I need to do when nobody's watching. And I think that's what it is a lot of times, you see those numbers and then you start, always trying to do the next cool thing, the next best thing, and then you burn down a little bit and then you don't do it. And for me personally, I think one of my biggest things is I need to prove to myself that I'm a hard worker. I find a lot of value in that. But it genuinely needs, like, to be made. Like, I need to know I'm working hard, irrelevant of anybody else around me, irrelevant of who's watching, of what the result is, of what the outcome is. And sometimes YouTube can get me into the cycle where I feel like I'm doing it because the result and the outcome, and I don't like that. And a lot of times I don't get that, but there's definitely phases when I do get that. And, I guess that's kind of why, I'll just have to take a break here and there, but I'm always coming back. I just need to keep my mindset right to make sure I'm doing the right things and make sure that, I'll be a better teacher, a better passer on of knowledge, a better sharer, a better just team member, more empathetic and able to appropriately just, I guess, do the right things when it comes to sharing content, creating content, pushing the right messages in an honest way, and I like to think I'm a really honest person. I really do. I feel like, thankfully, I can, usually explain pretty well what I mean, without it coming across as it could. And I'm hoping that is how this is coming off. I'm hoping you guys are kind of getting what I'm saying. Because I do love this. I love sharing. I love public speaking. I love getting messages like that. Like, that made my day. That made my week. It really, like, it's crazy. That just made me, it made me want to get on here and talk and start talking and just share. And I started doing tutorials again before the Clean Code site got up. And I don't know. I just thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't remember the name of who sent it right now, but I seriously, I genuinely appreciate that email, and I genuinely appreciate everybody who listens to me spiel on and who can just take away, something worthwhile, And I hope that we can really make this something special and something, I guess, just genuine. Something genuine, something special, but also something just honest. I'm in love with the process of improvement from an average place, from being average to just becoming better, becoming something different, becoming somebody else through the process, and garnering new life opportunities, new life perspectives and vantage points, because you have remounted yourself as a person, as a human, as a being, and you've just through the process, you built something else, you built somebody else, you become somebody else, and you've earned it. And I've never pushed that this is easy, that software is easy, and I never will. It's not. It's not. It's hard. It's difficult. It's, one of the most rewarding jobs out there, because it can lead you down so many paths. And I've always tried to push that message. I have never pushed that it's easy. I will always push that it's worth it if your life goals, if what you're looking to do lines up, just with it, if you're being your perspective. And one of my things is I want to not be stuck at a 40-hour gig, for the rest of my life. Like, that's okay if I, have a few years there, a few years here. But I don't. And I'm willing to do a lot to make sure that doesn't happen. A lot. But I also have that desire and that need to get better at stuff. And I've always just kind of used that as a double-edged sword, for whatever my feel or my emotion is for the day. It's like, I'll pick a reason and I'll keep going. And that's just kind of, that's just me. It's just me. And yeah, and clean code, clean life. I mean, that's my life goal. I'm not necessarily good at it. I love simplification because I was a writer first. I love being able to understand things without having to bang my head against the wall, but I'm willing to. And I'll very much so bang my head against the wall until it is understandable, because it usually takes me a lot longer than most, I think, to really understand something. But because of that, I don't want to have to come back to this thing 6 months from now and not remember what I did. I want to just learn it all the way through, learn it right, and hopefully in the process just pass on that mindset. Because if everybody just made things clean and made things understandable, then hey, that's a better world. That's a simplified world. That's a world where more people have the opportunity, the ability, the way of passage into such an incredible career of opportunities everywhere. And if you're one of those guys that, or girls that, if that's why you're in it, then man, this is the channel. Like, this is, I want to be around you as much as, like, you guys may want to watch these videos. Like, I want to be around you guys who see the opportunity, who see something bigger in this thing. Like, it's not a way out, but it's a way above, It's a way above that 40 hours. It's a way above that, constant commitment to responsibilities, for lack of a better word. Like, I don't want to be concerned with, hey, my family member just got Corona and I wasn't able to step in and pay for it. Like, no, I'm going to have the fiscal ability to pay for it. I'm going to have the mental capacity to do whatever it takes to deal with the problem. And that's just it. Like, mentally, resource-wise, like, that's why I'm in it. That's why I'm in it. And I'm seeing more and more comments where I'm seeing that's why you guys are in it too. And if that's not why you're in it, that's okay. That's okay. Some of the best people I've ever worked with, they were good. They had their family. They were okay. They'd been, working there for 30 years. One guy named Steve, best guy I've ever known, And he was just good. He had his family. His son was in the band, and he was just a phenomenal guy. And that is okay, too. That's just not where I'm coming from personally. Like, I'm trying... I'm just willing to sacrifice a lot more than a lot of people around me like me sacrificing. But that's why. It's to become better, to become different, to gain, to build, to strive forward and become something different. So, I don't know. I've had a lot of time to think lately with all this coding, so I'm sure I'm just letting it out a little bit. But for everybody out there who's got dreams, who's got aspirations, who sees this as something with the potential to just go beyond, whatever that boundary is, whatever that cliff is, you're in the right career. You're on the right path. You're on the right journey. And, hey, we're in it together. So, thank you guys so much. It's an incredible day. It's... And thank you for that email. I seriously, that... I really enjoyed that email. It made my day. So if you want to send me another email, if you see this and you get this far and you send me another email, tell me what lesson you want to learn. I know you're talking about PHP and I'm kind of going down JS, but that email, that seriously made my day. It made my week, and it just, tell me what you want to learn and we can definitely do that lesson. Just email me directly again and we can do that lesson. And I seriously thank you. All right, guys. That's all I got today. This is Zachary Warren, Clean Code Studio. Clean Code, Clean Life. Simplify.